Hi, I'm Alvaro Henrique and we are back with one more study by Mauro Giuliani. Giuliani is a great composer. I love him very much. And we have very often to overplay his pieces. If you just play what is written, it sounds dull, boring. You should always read between the lines, go after the emotion that Giuliani is seeking, and then you can really play what the music should sound like. If you just play the notes as written, it will be just another composer. That's not Giuliani. Giuliani, he wrote a lot of pieces. He's the composer who wrote the most for the guitar, in fact, and several of his studies are excerpts of larger works by him. This may probably be the case, but since he has written so much pieces for the guitar, I don't know if anyone can really tell he or she is an expert on Mauro Giuliani. Therefore, I couldn't recognize from which piece this excerpt could have been brought from or taken from, but it has some features like an early cadenza that suggests that it came from a larger piece, and he did that very often. So we start with this motif, which we have somehow anacrusi from a dominant chord. It sounds as if he played a dominant chord and then he's going to the tonic. Because of that, especially this semitone here, I don't play as written, as a slur, because I can't control neither the color nor the intensity, the volume of the second note. And to make more clear this effect of tension and release, I really need to control that. That's why I decide to pluck both notes instead of playing them as a slur. Then I make sure that the second note, the E, is a little bit softer and rounder, which the slur doesn't allow me to do. I have cut lots of slurs in this piece. You can watch my performance, and there will be a link of my performance here because of this reason. I believe slurs on the guitar definitely are not the best ally for good singing. So the next slur of the piece, you definitely need to do a crescendo to the E and then go down. And the slur doesn't allow you to control that. You play, instead of play, you play pa, E. The second note sounds softer than the first, not louder. You can really do a very strong legato, but then it sounds completely different with a very percussive sound. It doesn't create unity, it doesn't sing so well. Slurs are great though for rhythm, for playing fast, for allowing to play you faster, and rhythm not only to mark the rhythm of dances, but also to create some kind of swings and unexpected accents that will make the piece sound more interesting. But that's not the case. This is definitely a piece to be sung. You can even think this is as a duet by a soprano and a bass, that they are singing, especially on the beginning, pretty much the same text, and then somehow they manage to create a duetto with the soprano being more prominent than the bass. But that's pretty much what's going on. Two melodies that are singing, and throughout the middle of the piece, the bass will be more as an accompaniment part, but in the extremes, on the beginning and on the end, the bass has also important melody material. It's a piece from the tonal system, so the harmonic tensions are very important for you to understand and play as the piece should. So it starts in the tonic. Well, we have this anacruze before, and then the tonic, then the subdominant, which is moderate tension, then the dominant, which is strong tension, and the tonic, which is release. Dominant, tonic, dominant, subdominant, dominant with fourth, with third. This is a cadenza which, in this study, I believe is too soon to improvise, but that's one of the reasons I suspect it's an excerpt of a larger piece. In another context, I think it would be great to improvise a cadenza here. We will improvise a cadenza in this piece a little bit later, so we are going for that on the next page. So we are the dominant, we are again the dominant, tonic once more, we repeat, subdominant, dominant now, but that's not the dominant of the piece, the dominant of the tonic relative. Wow, that's a big word. What does that mean? It means that it's because the dominant of whatever, it's a chord that is part of the theme dominant, and the theme dominant is always tension. The theme subdominant is moderate tension, and the theme tonic is release. So every time it's subdominant, whatever, it's theme subdominant. Every time it's dominant, whatever, it's theme dominant. Okay? So it's a dominant, so it's a tension chord. Here also technically we have what Alvaro mentioned, a change of alignment. Alvaro said that we have positions on your left hand, so you number your positions according to where your first finger should point, either if it's playing or where it would be playing, if the fingers would be used, if the first finger would be used. Okay. And when you are in different positions, then you have to go for different positions. You're doing a change of position. Okay. The same concept when Alvaro brings to the right hand, he calls alignment, not position. So when we are with all fingers, with P thumb on the 60th string, I index on the 50th, M middle on the 4th, and A ring on the 3rd, we have this alignment. Then we have to play the second string. We have to change alignment. And there are some ways to avoid a change of alignment. So, but then those options, they involve doing crossing, which is to put your fingers in a placement that's contrary to this natural position. So, for example, you could play P, I, M, I. Then we have the crossing here going on. It's I over M, when the natural would be M over I. Okay? So I prefer just to change the alignment. Beware when you change alignment that you should keep playing on the same place in this imaginary perpendicular line to the strings, because then you keep the same color. So if you're playing here, it's the same color. Instead, if you just use your elbow as a pendulum and change the positions using that movement, this pendulum movement, then you reach a very different color here. Which is something that in this case you don't want to do. It's better to have unity in the sound. But if you disagree with me, if you want to give the soprano in this particular part a different color, then okay, use this movement and then you reach your desired result. Beware that that's really what you want to sound like, not what your hand gave you, okay? So we are back to the dominant of the tonic relative. Tonic relative, so it's steam tonic. Dominant, tonic relative, dominant of the tonic relative with ninth. That's the complete name of that chord. Subdominant, dominant of the tonic relative, dominant of the tonic relative, tonic relative. You see, we came from a passage which we have very strong tension, then we were releasing little by little. Dominant of the tonic relative, dominant of the tonic relative, then tonic relative. It's very interesting to show that, especially with dynamics, playing the dominant more strong, the dominant of the dominant even stronger, and the tonic, even be it a tonic relative, a little bit softer. Okay, so we are back to the tonic relative, then dominant of the tonic relative. Here it begins an effect of appoggiaturas, which in this first chord is not really appoggiatura, but I suggest you to play as if it would, so it creates unity to the next notes, which there will be appoggiaturas. Yes, there will be appoggiaturas. So do in this first time as if it were appoggiaturas, so you can create unity. In appoggiatura you have a dissonance, a note that's not part of the chord, that is resolved by a lower neighbored note, a lower descending neighbor note. We are going to see that later. It sounds a little bit more too theoretical speaking that way, okay? So we play as if it were a note that is not part of the chord. That's not the case, but we are playing as if it was. So more tension, and then you release on the note that's part of the chord. Yeah, that's part of the chord, the F. Then the tonic relative. Then the dominant of the tonic relative. Then here we have an appoggiatura. The E is not part of the dominant of the tonic relative chord, which is G, B, and D. Those are the notes from that chord. The E is not part of that chord. The D is. So it's a note that's not part of the chord, that is resolved by the next neighbor descending note, which is part of the chord. So it's an E that's resolved with a D. And so the tension, you play longer and legato, stronger and legato. You can play longer too, but that longer is optional. I think it's interesting in this case, but for sure stronger and legato. In this case I recommend also a little bit longer, and then the second note, the release, softer, and I think it's better to be legato here as well, but it can be staccato anyway. So subdominant relative, tonic relative, appoggiatura, release, dominant of the tonic relative, appoggiatura, release, tonic relative, subdominant relative, then a repetition, also tonic relative, subdominant relative also, dominant of the tonic relative, then tonic relative. Okay, let's go back because there's something going on with the fingering here. We have to play a C and then go to a F on the bass. If you try to play both with the first finger, that is tremendously difficult without necessity. There are two options. I prefer playing always the C with number 2, finger 2, and then F with 1 and A with 3, always. Another option is play the C with a cap with a barré. It can be a partial barré, and then play the F. It can be even not as a capo, or with the finger being as if it was a capo, but you're only really pressing the 60th string, not all of them. So again in the C, partial barré, okay. I prefer just playing 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, but both options are okay. I only use the barré when I have here B, F, D, because then I think it's too much. Then I think it's easier to just do a barré here. I play the F as if it was a barré, but I really only play the 6th string and then I go down to the barré, which doesn't need to be full barré, just the extremes. Okay. Then we are going back to the tonic relative. Then we are having a succession of diminished chords with all of them dominants. The first is a dominant of the subdominant, then a dominant of the dominant, and then a dominant. So it's a dominant of a moderate chord, dominant of a dominant chord, then dominant, and then tonic. So it's tension, more tension, a little bit less tension, and release. Subdominant, tonic relative. Here I also prefer using finger 2 instead of playing barré and going there, but finger 2. I go first with 1 and 4th, and then I feel with the other fingers. I don't go with all chords, all notes of the chord already in position. Subdominant, dominant of the dominant, dominant of the dominant, dominant of the dominant. This is a cadenza. We are at the dominant, you made our harmonic progression to the dominant, and then we are going back to the beginning of the music, the first theme. That's a cadenza in form. And this kind of cadenza you should improvise. And in Giuliani's time, especially Giuliani, we have several records that he did improvise. How can you write your own improvisation? There are only one single rule which you really should beware, which is you cannot change the harmony, or if you change chords, the last chord should be the same as the first. So we started with an E major chord. So compose something that either stays with E major, or if you change chords, you will end in an E major chord. Because it's a simple study, it doesn't need to be a long cadenza. I decided to do something very simple that keeps the chord. What I thought, and what you can use to inspire yourself. I decided to use as the main notes of a melody the notes of the E major chord. So G sharp, E, B, D sharp, E, D sharp, D, E. I decided to end in this E also because the very first note that I'll play after that is the D sharp, and the E is the closest note in the E major chord from the next one. So it's very nice to do some trinado in this note that's very close to the following note that you have to play, and then it sounds very interesting. You connect both ideas, okay? So those are the main important notes of my cadenza. But if I just do that, it's just an arpeggio. I go boring. So it's better if I do a scale. So I fill the blanks with notes from the scale. At first, because the A minor scale, it should be F, F, A, D, C, A, D, G sharp, F, E, F, G sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F, D sharp. Well, but wouldn't be in A major scale G natural instead of G sharp? Yes, it would, but then you are changing the harmony, and you can't change the harmony. It's E major, G sharp, so don't change the chord. But since we have used recently the D sharp, and the next note will be a D sharp, I decided it would be even more interesting, instead of using the D natural, to use the D sharp. Then I have this extra gypsy sound. When do you have the opportunity to have this gypsy sound on the classic repertoire, 19th century music? This is a very rare opportunity, so I decided to enjoy that. So I'm using the D sharp because of that. You're just using the D sharp so often, so I prefer D sharp, but you can use D natural if for your ears it's too exotic, the D sharp. Okay. So this is how I compose this cadenza, very simple. So I end with a trillo in my last note. It's the longer, and then back to the theme. So, and then it's a repetition until we reach measure number 41 in the subdominant, dominant of the tonic dominant, tonic, tonic, dominant, tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic, dominant, tonic. This part in measure 42, it begins a coda. The music itself ended in this very first A of measure 42. You could end this piece like that. But Giuliani decided to write a few measures more so you can have an opportunity to build your ending, to make it more expressive, to finish your piece showing more the emotion you want your audience to feel. So if you want to end it in a very majestic way, do so, especially from the measure 42 on. If you want to end it melancholically, do so. And what should you inspire yourself to aim for that emotion you want to deliver? Use a very old concept called polyphony. You imitate something that's not music. You think of when you say something when you are mad. You have a specific dynamics, some color that you use when you say when you are mad, okay? And then you use the same resources in your music. But when you are calm and a little bit depressive, down, it's a different tone, it's a different dynamics, different color, and you copy that. Some imagination is required, but if you copy what the language already delivers and use the dominant chord, use the notes that are not part of the chord to be more expressive, then you for sure are going to the direction you want to. So it's a tonic, be more expressive here, then it's a tone, but the F is not part of the chord. So if you do anything more exaggerated in the tension, you are going to reach the emotion you are wanting to deliver to your audience. And that's what playing Giuliani is like. It's not only playing the notes, it's playing more than the notes. Have fun.